The man was going to die in this alley, and Zuri was going to watch. She pressed her back harder against the dumpster, making herself small. Making herself invisible. 3 weeks on the streets had taught her how to disappear. How to become nothing. The black SUV had come out of nowhere. Tires screaming. Gunshots cracking the night open like broken glass. Men shouting words she didn't understand, Korean, maybe, and then silence. The heavy kind. The kind that meant someone had stopped breathing. Zuri clutched the crumpled $4 bill in her fist. Her last $4. The money she'd stolen from Richard's wallet the night she ran. She hadn't spent it. Not when her stomach cramped so hard she couldn't stand. Not when she found half a hot dog in a trash can and ate it anyway. This money was hers. Her power. Her emergency. She wasn't letting go of it for anything. The man stumbled out of the SUV and collapsed face-first onto the concrete. His suit probably cost more than anything Zuri had ever owned. Dark gray. Expensive. Now it was soaked in blood, the fabric torn where a bullet had ripped through his side. He wasn't moving. Run, her brain screamed. Run now. Don't look back. Don't get involved. 3 weeks ago, she would have listened. 3 weeks ago, she was still a stupid little girl who believed adults would protect her. Who believed that if she just told someone what Richard was doing in that basement, they'd make it stop. They sent her back to him instead. Now she knew better. The world didn't save little black girls from monsters. Little black girls had to save themselves. She should run. But she didn't. Instead, she crept out from behind the dumpster and crossed the alley on silent feet. The man's eyes were closed. Blood pooled beneath him, black and shiny under the flickering streetlight. Zuri crouched beside him. Pressed 2 fingers to his neck the way she'd seen on TV. A pulse. Weak, but there. She looked at his face. Sharp jaw. Dark hair falling across his forehead. Even unconscious and bleeding out, there was something dangerous about him. Something cold. The kind of man people crossed the street to avoid. The kind of man who could kill someone and not lose sleep over it. Zuri had seen men like him before. Not in person, in the way Richard's friends sometimes talked when they didn't know she was listening. About people who made problems disappear. About debts paid in blood. Monsters. That's what they were. But sometimes, you needed a monster. She looked at the $4 in her hand. Her emergency fund. Her only power. Then she looked at the dying man. And she made a decision. The burger joint 3 blocks away was called Lucky's. Fluorescent lights. Sticky floors. The kind of place that didn't ask questions when an 8-year-old walked in alone at 11 o'clock at night. Zuri slapped her $4 on the counter. Biggest burger you got, she said. The cashier, a tired-looking woman with acrylic nails and a name tag that said Destiny, raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. 3 minutes later, Zuri had a greasy paper bag in her hands. She ran back to the alley. The man was still unconscious. Still bleeding. But still breathing. Zuri sat down cross-legged beside him and waited. She didn't know how long it took. Long enough for her legs to fall asleep. Long enough for the blood to stop spreading. Long enough for the sky to shift from black to that hazy gray that meant morning was coming. The man's eyes opened. Dark. Almost black. Sharp with pain and something else, something dangerous. He tried to move and hissed through his teeth. His hand went to his side, came away wet. Don't, Zuri said. His gaze snapped to her. For a second, something flickered across his face, confusion, maybe. Or disbelief. Who? His voice was gravel scraping over broken glass. Eat. Zuri held up the burger. It was cold now, but that didn't matter. You lost a lot of blood. You need food. He stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. Who are you? He asked again. Nobody. She pushed the burger closer. Eat. Then I need a favor. He ate. Not because he trusted her, Zuri wasn't stupid enough to think that. He ate because he was too weak to argue. Too weak to do anything except take the burger from her hands and force himself to chew. Zuri watched him. She'd gotten good at watching people. At noticing things. At remembering. She pulled her notebook out of her jacket pocket. The cover was stained and bent, but the pages inside were neat. Careful. She'd written everything down in her best handwriting, because someday, someone would need to know. The man finished the burger. Wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes never left her face. What favor, he said. It wasn't a question. It was a demand. Zuri opened her notebook. Flipped to the photograph tucked inside the front cover. Richard's face smiled up at them. Friendly. Warm. The kind of face that made people trust him. She held it out so the man could see. I need you to kill him. Silence. The man didn't move. Didn't blink. His expression was carved from stone. He's my foster father, Zuri continued. Her voice didn't shake. She wouldn't let it. And he's not done yet. There are other kids in that house. She met the monster's eyes and waited for his answer. If you are enjoying this video, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. Joon-ho was hallucinating. That was the only explanation. Blood loss did strange things to the mind. Made you see things that weren't there. Made you hear words that couldn't possibly be real. A child had not just asked him to commit murder. But the girl's eyes didn't waver. No tears. No trembling lip. No fear. Just steady, unflinching certainty, the kind that came from seeing things no child should ever see. Joon-ho had looked into the eyes of killers. Traffickers. Men who would slit your throat for pocket change. He knew what darkness looked like when it lived inside a person. This girl had it too. Whatever burned inside her, it had eaten the innocence right out of her bones. You don't know what you're asking, he said. Yes, I do. She held the photograph steady. Richard Whitmore. Friendly smile. Kind eyes. The face of a man everyone trusted. The face of a man who hurt children. Joon-ho opened his mouth to respond, but headlights swept across the alley. An engine roared. Doors slammed. Boss. Hyun-sik's voice. His second in command. The only man in his organization Joon-ho trusted without question. Footsteps pounded toward them. 3 men appeared, Hyun-sik in front, 2 soldiers flanking him. All of them armed. All of them terrified. We've been searching for hours. Hyun-sik dropped to his knees beside Joon-ho, pressing a hand to the wound. His face went pale. You need a hospital. No hospital. Boss. No. Hospital. Joon-ho forced himself to sit up, biting back the scream that clawed at his throat. Call Dr. Yoon. Bring him to the compound. Hyun-sik hesitated, then nodded. He barked orders at the other men. One of them ran for the car. The ambush, Joon-ho said through gritted teeth. Someone talked. Hyun-sik's jaw tightened. I know. We're looking into it. Look harder. They lifted him between them, careful, but not careful enough. Pain exploded through his side like a grenade. Black spots danced at the edges of his vision. He was halfway to the SUV when he remembered. The girl. He turned his head. The alley was empty. She'd vanished like smoke, melting back into the shadows she'd come from. Smart. A survivor. Joon-ho let his men load him into the car. Let them drive him to the compound. Let Dr. Yoon dig the bullet out of his side and stitch him back together. Through all of it, he saw her face. Those steady eyes. That crumpled photograph. I need you to kill him. He should forget her. She wasn't his problem. He had a traitor to find. A war to prepare for. A business to protect. But he didn't forget. 3 days later, Joon-ho sat in his office, staring at a file. Richard Whitmore. Age 47. Resident of Los Angeles for 22 years. Active member of Grace Community Church. Volunteer coach for youth baseball. Licensed foster parent for the past decade. 12 children had passed through his care. All of them from difficult backgrounds. All of them with nowhere else to go. On paper, he was a saint. Joon-ho flipped to the next page. His hackers had dug deeper. Beneath the church donations and Little League trophies, they'd found something else. Hidden hard drives. Encrypted files. Financial records that didn't match his modest income. A network. Richard Whitmore wasn't just hurting children. He was selling them. Access, mostly. Wealthy men who paid for private sessions. But some children disappeared entirely. Shipped overseas. Never seen again. Joon-ho had done terrible things in his life. He'd killed men. Destroyed families. Built an empire on blood and fear. But this made his stomach turn. He thought of the girl. 8 years old. Living on the streets. Running from a man who was about to sell her to the highest bidder. The next page made him stop breathing. Richard's financial records showed payments from a company called Pacific Rim Holdings. A shell corporation. One of dozens used to move dirty money across borders. Joon-ho knew that company. His own lawyer had flagged it 2 years ago during an audit. Pacific Rim Holdings was owned by Park Sung-min. The same Park Sung-min who had funded the ambush 3 days ago. The same Park Sung-min who wanted Joon-ho dead. His hands tightened on the file. This wasn't coincidence. The trafficking network reached into his own world. Into his own organization. Someone close to him was working with Park. Someone close to him knew about the children. The traitor wasn't just a business problem anymore. It was personal. Joon-ho found the girl in an abandoned building 6 blocks from the alley where they'd met. She'd made a nest for herself in a corner, stolen blankets, newspapers, a milk crate turned upside down as a table. Her notebook sat on top, edges worn from constant handling. She didn't run when she saw him. Didn't scream. Just watched him approach with those ancient eyes. "How did you find me?" she asked. "I find everyone." He stopped a few feet away. His side still ached, but he ignored it. Pain was just information. It told you what to protect. "Why me?" he asked. "You could have gone to the police. A teacher. Anyone." "I did go to the police." Her voice was flat. "They sent me back to him. Said I was making up stories for attention." "A teacher, then." "A counselor." "Same thing." She pulled her knees to her chest. "Nobody believes kids like me. We're troublemakers. Liars. Problems to be solved." She tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "But I watched you kill 3 men getting out of that car. You didn't hesitate. You didn't feel bad. You're a monster." Joon-ho said nothing. "I need a monster," she finished. "Monsters are the only ones who can kill other monsters." The words hung in the air between them. Cold. True. Joon-ho had been called many things in his life. Boss. Criminal. Killer. But no one had ever named what he was with such simple clarity. Monster. Yes. He supposed he was. "I'll kill him," he said. Something flickered in her eyes, relief, maybe, or hope. She buried it quickly. "But not as a favor," he continued. "As a transaction." Her brow furrowed. "I don't have any money." I spend it on your burger. I don't want money. He crouched down so they were eye level. This close, he could see the faded bruises on her arms. The way she held herself, ready to run at any second. I want information, he said. Everything in that notebook. Every name Richard mentioned. Every man who came to that house. Every detail you remember. She stared at him for a long moment. Calculating. Weighing. Then she nodded. Deal. Joon-ho stood. The movement sent a fresh wave of pain through his side, but he didn't let it show. Weakness was a luxury he couldn't afford. He turned to leave. Wait. Her voice stopped him at the doorway. There's something else you should know. She hugged the notebook to her chest. Richard told me once that if anything ever happened to him, a man named Park would make sure I disappeared. He said Park owns cops. Judges. She paused. Even people in your world. Joon-ho went still. Park Sung-min. The man who wanted him dead. The man who funded trafficking networks. The man who had someone inside Joon-ho's organization feeding him information. It was all connected. The ambush. The trafficking. The traitor. And now Joon-ho had just made himself a target by getting involved with the one person who could expose it all. He looked back at the girl. 8 years old. 80 pounds soaking wet. Holding a notebook full of secrets that could bring down an empire. What's your name? He asked. Zuri. Zuri. He tasted the word. Let it settle. Stay here. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'll send someone for you tomorrow. She didn't ask why. Didn't argue. Just nodded once, sharp and certain. Smart girl. Joon-ho walked out of the building and into the night. His phone was already in his hand. Hyun-sik. We have a problem. The war he'd been preparing for had just gotten a lot more complicated. If you are enjoying this video, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. The compound sat in the hills like a fortress. High walls. Security cameras. Armed guards at every gate. Joon-ho had built it to be impenetrable, a place where no enemy could reach him. Now he was bringing a child through those gates, and his entire world had tilted sideways. The SUV rolled to a stop in front of the main house. Hyun-sik was already waiting on the steps, his expression carefully neutral. Behind him stood Mrs. Park, the housekeeper who'd worked for Joon-ho for 15 years. Her face was anything but neutral. Horror. Confusion. Fear. Joon-ho climbed out of the car. Zuri followed, clutching her notebook like a shield. She looked small against the backdrop of the sprawling estate, small and sharp and completely out of place. Boss. Hyun-sik's voice was tight. What is this? She's a witness. Joon-ho didn't slow down as he walked past. She's valuable. He felt Hyun-sik's stare boring into his back. Felt the questions hanging in the air, unasked. What witness? Valuable how? Why is there a child in our compound? Joon-ho didn't answer any of them. He wasn't sure he could. She's valuable was the easy explanation. The one that made sense in his world of transactions and leverage. But it wasn't the whole truth. Zuri didn't trust any of it. The bedroom they gave her was bigger than Richard's entire living room. Soft bed. Clean sheets. A window overlooking gardens she'd never be allowed to play in. She sat on the edge of the mattress and didn't move. Mrs. Park brought food, rice, soup, meat that smelled better than anything Zuri had eaten in months. She set it on the desk and left without a word. Zuri waited until the footsteps faded. Then she ate, fast, mechanical, barely tasting it. Food was fuel. You never knew when your next meal would come. When she finished, she explored the room. Tested the window. It was locked. Checked the door. Unlocked, but she could hear guards in the hallway. Not a prison. But not freedom either. That night, after the house went quiet, Zuri crept to the kitchen. The knives were in a drawer beside the stove. She took a small one, easy to hide, and slipped it under her pillow. Only then did she sleep. The doctor came the next morning. His name was Yoon, and he had kind eyes and gentle hands. Zuri hated him immediately. "I need to examine you," he said. "Just to make sure you're healthy." "I'm fine." "I'm sure you are." "But Mr. Kang asked me to check." Zuri looked at Joon-ho, who stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. His face gave nothing away. "It's your choice," he said. "But I need to know what we're dealing with." "We." Like they were a team. Like she was part of something. Zuri didn't believe it. But she also didn't have anywhere else to go. "Fine," she said. "But I keep my clothes on." The report arrived on Joon-ho's desk 3 hours later. He read it alone. Door locked. Curtains drawn. The language was clinical. Detached. The kind of words doctors used when the truth was too ugly for normal speech. Multiple healed fractures consistent with repeated trauma. Scarring on the back and upper arms. Evidence of malnutrition. Signs of prolonged physical and psychological abuse. Joon-ho set the paper down. His hands were shaking. He hadn't felt this in years. Not since he was a boy in Busan, hiding in the back of a warehouse while men decided his price. Not since his mother, strung out and desperate, had sold him to a gang leader for enough money to buy her next fix. 8 years old. Alone. Worthless. He'd survived by becoming useful. By learning to hurt before he could be hurt. By climbing over the bodies of everyone who underestimated him until he reached the top. Now he looked at this report and saw himself. A child with no one. A child being sold. The rage that rose in his chest wasn't strategic. It wasn't the cold, calculated anger he used in business. It was personal. Ancient. The fury of a boy who'd never been allowed to be angry. Joon-ho folded the report and placed it in his desk drawer. Then he went to find Zuri. She was sitting by the window, her notebook open in her lap. "Tell me everything," Joon-ho said. "Show me what you have." Zuri studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw in his face must have satisfied her, because she nodded and handed over the notebook. Joon-ho flipped through the pages. His breath caught. This wasn't a child's diary. It was surveillance. License plates. Dates. Times. Physical descriptions of men who'd visited Richard's house. Names she'd overheard. Snippets of conversation. March 14th, silver BMW, plate 7GHK 832. Man with glasses, gray beard. Stayed 2 hours. Left with the youngest boy. April 2nd. Richard called someone, councilman. Said next shipment ready. May 19th, heard name, Park. Richard nervous. Said Park would handle everything. Page after page. Meticulous. Detailed. Damning. "I knew no one would believe me," Zuri said quietly. "So I collected proof." Joon-ho looked up at her. 8 years old. Living in hell. And instead of breaking, she'd built a case. "You're remarkable," he said. She shrugged. "I'm careful. There's a difference." He turned to the last pages. His blood went cold. Among the names, Councilman Bradley Morrison. Tech Executive Nathan Webb. 2 LAPD detectives, Rodriguez and Fleming. And Park Sung-min. All of them connected. All of them complicit. Joon-ho closed the notebook. "Wait here," he said. "I have work to do." David Shen had worked for Joon-ho for 12 years. He was smart. Reliable. The kind of lawyer who knew how to make problems disappear without asking questions. He was also a traitor. Joon-ho's hackers had traced the connection through layers of shell companies and offshore accounts. David had been on Park's payroll for at least 3 years, funneling information and money through Joon-ho's legitimate businesses. But that wasn't the worst part. The shipping containers. Joon-ho's shipping containers. The ones he used to move product across borders. They'd been moving children too. Joon-ho had built his empire on drugs and weapons and gambling. Ugly businesses, but businesses with rules. Lines he wouldn't cross. He'd been crossing them without knowing it. An unwitting accomplice to something monstrous. The rage from earlier returned, colder now. Sharper. David Chen was waiting in the basement. 2 guards stood by the door. They stepped aside when Joon-ho approached. David looked up. His face was pale, his expensive suit rumpled from hours of waiting. Joon-ho. Whatever you've heard, I can explain. Explain, Park Sung-min. David's mouth snapped shut. Explain the money, Joon-ho continued. Explain how children have been moving through my containers for 3 years while you smiled in my face and took my money. I didn't have a choice. David's voice cracked. They have leverage on everyone. Blackmail. Recordings. You can't take them down, they'll destroy you. I've been destroyed before. Joon-ho leaned close. I rebuilt myself from nothing. David started to cry. Ugly, desperate sobs. Please. I'll tell you everything. Just don't kill me. Joon-ho straightened. He wanted to kill him. Wanted to wrap his hands around David's throat and squeeze until the light left his eyes. But dead men couldn't feed false information. You'll live, Joon-ho said. For now. And you'll do exactly what I tell you. That night, a knock woke Joon-ho from shallow sleep. He opened the door to find Zuri standing in the hallway, barefoot and wide-eyed. The security monitors, she said. I figured out how to access them. You need to see this. He followed her to the control room. She'd pulled up a news broadcast on one of the screens. Richard Whitmore stood in front of a microphone, tears streaming down his face. Behind him, police officers looked solemn and concerned. Please, Richard sobbed. If anyone has seen my little girl, please bring her home. She's confused. She needs help. I just want her safe. The camera cut to a press conference. 2 detectives stepped forward. Rodriguez and Fleming. The same names in Zuri's notebook. They're not looking for me to save me, Zuri said. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled at her sides. They're looking for me to shut me up. Joon-ho stared at the screen. Richard's tearful face. The detective's false concern. The trap was closing. And they were running out of time. If you are enjoying this video, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. If Park Sung-min wanted a war, Joon-ho would give him one. But he wouldn't fight it the way Park expected. Joon-ho hadn't survived 30 years in this world by being reckless. He'd survived by being smarter than everyone who wanted him dead. 3 steps. That's all it would take. Step 1, David Chen. Joon-ho sat across from his former lawyer in the basement, watching the man sweat through his designer shirt. You're going to contact Park, Joon-ho said. Tell him I'm wounded. Weak. That I'm hiding at a safe house in Long Beach while I recover. David's eyes darted around the room. He'll want proof. Then give him proof. Joon-ho slid a burner phone across the table. Photos. Medical reports. Whatever it takes to make him believe I'm vulnerable. And if he doesn't believe me? Then you're no longer useful to me. David understood. He always had been good at understanding threats. Step 2, the journalist. Her name was Sarah Chen, no relation to David. She'd built her career exposing corruption in Los Angeles. Police scandals. Political cover-ups. The kind of stories that made powerful people nervous. Joon-ho sent her a package. No return address. Inside, selected pages from Zuri's notebook. License plates. Dates. The names of Councilman Morrison and the two dirty detectives. Not everything. Just enough to light a fire. Step 3, Richard Whitmore. This one required bait. Zuri couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft. The room was too quiet. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back in that basement, listening to footsteps on the stairs. She'd wake up gasping, her hand already reaching for the knife under her pillow. 3 days in the compound, and she felt like she was losing her mind. The guards watched her constantly. Mrs. Park brought her meals she barely touched. Everyone treated her like she was made of glass, like she might shatter if they looked at her wrong. She wasn't glass. She was steel. She'd had to be. But steel could rust if you left it sitting still for too long. On the 4th night, she found Joon-ho in his office, staring at a chessboard. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking up. "Can you teach me?" He raised an eyebrow. "Chess. You said survival isn't just about running." She pulled a chair to the opposite side of the desk. "You said it's about thinking ahead. So teach me." For a moment, something flickered across his face. Then he nodded. "White moves first," he said. "Watch." They played every night after that. Joon-ho taught her openings. Gambits. How to sacrifice a piece to gain position. How to see the board not as it was, but as it would be 3 moves from now. "Chess isn't about strength," he told her. "It's about patience. You wait for your opponent to make a mistake, and then you punish them for it." Zuri absorbed everything. She lost the first dozen games, but each time she lost differently. Learned something new. By the 5th night, she nearly had him in checkmate before he slipped away. "Good," he said. "You're learning." She stared at the board. "Why are you really helping me?" The question hung in the air. Joon-ho's hand paused over his bishop. "Because I know what it's like," he said finally. "To be sold. To have no one." Zuri looked up. His face was unreadable, but his voice had changed. Softer. Older. "When I was 8 years old, my mother sold me to a gang in Busan." He moved the bishop. "She needed money for drugs. I was just currency." Zuri didn't say anything. She understood currency. She understood being worth something to people who didn't see you as human. "I survived by becoming useful," Joon-ho continued. "By learning to hurt before I could be hurt. I became a monster because monsters were all I knew." "So you're helping me because you feel guilty?" "No." He met her eyes. "I'm helping you because I can't undo what I am. But I can choose what my power is for." Silence stretched between them. The clock on the wall ticked softly. "Does it ever stop hurting?" Zuri asked. "The memories?" Joon-ho was quiet for a long moment. "No," he admitted. "But you learned to carry them." The trap was set. Joon-ho's men staged a sighting of Zuri in downtown LA. A homeless shelter. A convenience store. Whispers that spread through the streets like wildfire. The missing girl. The one from the news. Someone saw her near Skid Row. Richard Whitmore took the bait. He couldn't risk sending someone else. Couldn't risk Zuri talking to the wrong person. He had to handle this himself, had to make sure she disappeared before she could destroy everything he'd built. He drove to the location alone. Parked in an alley. Stepped out of his car. 3 men were waiting for him. The warehouse smelled like rust and salt water. Richard sat in a metal chair, his wrists zip-tied behind his back. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. He'd struggled when they grabbed him. Joon-ho stood in front of him, perfectly still. "Do you know where you are?" he asked. Richard's eyes darted around the empty space. Concrete floors. High ceilings. Loading bays. This is a shipping warehouse, Joon-ho said. The same kind you used to move children overseas. I thought it was fitting. I don't know what you're talking about. Richard's voice shook. I'm a foster parent. I help kids. Joon-ho dropped a folder in his lap. Photographs. Financial records. Pages from Zuri's notebook. I'm not interested in your lies, Joon-ho said. I already know everything. Richard stared at the evidence. His face went white. Here's what's going to happen. Joon-ho's voice was ice. You're going to confess. On camera. Every name. Every transaction. Every child you sold. I can't, they'll kill me. I'll kill you if you don't. Joon-ho leaned close. The only choice you have is whether your death is quick or slow. Richard started to cry. Ugly, gasping sobs that shook his whole body. He'd always been a coward beneath the charm. The confession took 2 hours. Richard spilled everything. Names. Dates. Account numbers. The entire network laid bare in trembling, desperate words. But then he said something Joon-ho didn't expect. There's an auction, Richard gasped. In 48 hours. 23 children. Park is hosting it on his yacht, international waters, where no one can touch him. Joon-ho went still. What auction? The big one. The annual sale. Buyers fly in from all over the world. Richard's voice cracked. Zuri was supposed to be the star attraction. They called her the Defiant One. Rich men pay more for spirit because they enjoy breaking it. The words hit Joon-ho like bullets. 23 children. 48 hours. And Zuri had been meant for the auction block. He found her in the security room, watching the monitors. I heard, she said before he could speak. The walls aren't that thick. Joon-ho stood beside her, staring at the screens. He had a choice. He could take Richard's confession to the authorities. Let the system handle it. The safe move. The smart move. Or he could intercept the yacht himself. Save those children. Burn Park Sung-min's empire to ashes. And probably start a war that would cost him everything. You told me survival is about thinking ahead, Zuri said quietly. But some things are worth more than survival. She was right. He hated that she was right. Joon-ho pulled out his phone. Hyun-sik. Gather the team. Full tactical. A pause on the other end. Boss? We're going to war. If you are enjoying this video, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. Park Sung-min's yacht glittered on the black Pacific like a floating palace. Crystal chandeliers. Champagne flutes. Men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns, laughing and mingling as if they weren't about to bid on human beings. Below deck, 23 children waited in cages. Joon-ho watched through binoculars from the speedboat. His team, 12 men, the best he had, checked their weapons in silence. Communications are down, Hyun-sik reported. Security cameras disabled. They're blind. Good. Joon-ho lowered the binoculars. We go in fast. Neutralize the guards first. No one leaves that yacht. The second team was already approaching from the water, divers who would breach the lower deck while Joon-ho's unit hit from above. This was it. No turning back. Move. The assault was surgical. Joon-ho's men scaled the yacht's hull like shadows. The first guard fell before he could reach his radio. The second died with a knife in his throat. Within 3 minutes, the upper deck was secured. The buyers heard the gunshots and panicked. Some screamed. Some ran for the lifeboats. Some tried to fight with champagne bottles and bare fists. None of them escaped. Joon-ho moved through the chaos like death itself. His years of warfare had taught him how to turn violence into art, precise, efficient, final. A man in a white dinner jacket lunged at him. Joon-ho broke his arm, then his neck. A woman tried to hide behind a curtain. His men dragged her out with the others. By the time he reached the stairs to the lower deck, the upper level was a graveyard of broken glass and bleeding bodies. The children were worse than he'd imagined. 23 of them. Ages 6 to 14. Drugged into compliance, dressed in clothes that made Joon-ho's stomach turn. They sat in cages like animals. Some were crying. Some stared at nothing, their eyes empty and distant. "Get them out," Joon-ho ordered. "Carefully. They're scared." His men moved slowly, speaking in soft voices, cutting locks and lifting children into their arms. One little boy, couldn't have been older than 7, grabbed Joon-ho's sleeve. "Is the bad man gone?" he whispered. Joon-ho crouched down to his level. "Yes. The bad man is gone. You're safe now." The boy started to cry. Not from fear, from relief. Joon-ho had killed dozens of men tonight. He'd feel nothing about any of them. But this small hand clutching his sleeve, cracked something open in his chest. Park Sung-min was in the master suite, frantically shoving documents into a shredder. He spun when Joon-ho kicked the door open. His face went pale. "Wait," he held up his hands. "Wait. We can make a deal." "No deals. You don't understand." Park's voice rose with desperation. "This network is bigger than me. Politicians. CEOs. People who can end you with a phone call. We can be partners. I know exactly how deep it goes." Joon-ho stepped closer. "I have a notebook." Park's eyes widened. The girl. The merchandise he'd dismissed. The defiant one who was supposed to make him a fortune. She destroyed everything. "Please," Park whispered. "I have money. Power. I can give you." The bullet caught him between the eyes. Quick. Clean. More mercy than he deserved. Joon-ho lowered the gun and didn't feel a thing. The evacuation was almost complete when the ambush came. Not Park's men. Someone else. Black uniforms. Military precision. Tactical gear that screamed government, or something worse. They came out of nowhere, rappelling from helicopters that had approached in silence. "Contact!" Hyun-sik shouted. The firefight erupted across the deck. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness. Joon-ho's men scrambled for cover, returning fire. 2 of his soldiers fell in the first volley. Then a third. Someone bigger than Park, Joon-ho realized. "They're cleaning house." He grabbed a rifle from a dead guard and joined the fight. Bullets tore through the air around him. One grazed his shoulder, a line of fire across his skin. For a moment, it seemed like they would all die on this yacht. Then he heard it. Rotors. Different rotors. Coast Guard helicopters appeared on the horizon, searchlights blazing across the water. The journalist. She'd received the evidence and gone straight to federal authorities. The tactical unit retreated. They couldn't fight a public battle. Within seconds, they were gone, melting back into the darkness they'd come from. Joon-ho lowered his weapon and let himself breathe. The aftermath unfolded over days. Richard Whitmore's confession went viral. Millions of views. Dozens of arrests followed: Councilman Morrison, the tech executive, the dirty cops. The network collapsed like a house of cards. Park Sung-min's death was ruled self-defense. The trafficking evidence spoke for itself. Joon-ho faced scrutiny. Questions. Investigators who wanted to know how a crime boss had stumbled onto a child trafficking ring. He told them nothing useful. But privately, federal agents approached him with a different kind of conversation. Immunity. Continued operation. In exchange for ongoing intelligence about international trafficking networks. He accepted. A monster with a leash was still a monster. But now his teeth served a purpose. Zuri couldn't stay. Joon-ho knew it. A crime boss's compound was no place for a child, no matter how much he wanted to protect her. He vetted the family himself. Margaret and Thomas Wheeler. She was a retired teacher. He was a former social worker. They'd fostered older children for 15 years, kids no one else wanted. Kids who'd seen too much. They lived in Oregon. Far from Los Angeles. Far from the memories. On her last night at the compound, Zuri found Joon-ho in his office. She held out her notebook. "I don't need it anymore," she said. Joon-ho took it. The pages were worn. Stained. Full of secrets that had brought down an empire. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small velvet pouch. "For you." Zuri opened it. Inside was a chess piece, a black queen. "The most powerful piece on the board," Joon-ho said. "That's you. Never forget it." Zuri stared at the queen. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She never cried. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." "Thank you," he replied. "For the burger." She almost smiled. 5 years later. Zuri was 13. Thriving in school. Healing slowly, the way deep wounds always healed, with time and patience and people who didn't give up on you. She wrote letters to Joon-ho sometimes. Updates on her life. Questions about strategy. The occasional chess puzzle that took him hours to solve. He wrote back. Always. In Los Angeles, Joon-ho sat in his office, reading a new file. A trafficking operation in Eastern Europe. Children in danger. A network that thought it was untouchable. He closed the folder. Picked up the phone. Hyunsik. Prepare the team. A pause. Where? Budapest. We leave tonight. He hung up and looked out the window at the city lights below. The monster still hunted. But now he chose his prey. Zuri once asked if the memories ever stop hurting. They don't. But Joon-ho had learned something new. Pain can be a compass. It can point you toward the darkness that needs burning. And he has plenty of fire left. If you are enjoying this video, kindly hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. The end.